Hi everybody! In this video I'm going to show you how you can teach your dog to be comfortable wearing one of these cones, as well as find the experience of putting it on and taking it off, a positive experience that means reinforcement is coming. So as you can see, when she puts her head in the cone and takes it out, she has an expectant look that something good is going to happen, like that. Can you put it in? Good! Free! There are different types of cones as well as inflatable devices to prevent your dog messing with some injury or surgery. So a cone like this, it can prevent the dog from chewing on stitches on the rest of the body, but it can also prevent the dog from kicking or pawing at an injury that's on their face. So if the injury is on the face, you want to make sure the cone is long enough that the legs can't get into the cone if the dog turns their head to kick their face with their back legs, which can happen if the cone is too short. And you want to make sure that the cone is not short enough with the dog, if the dog has an injury on their body, that they can reach it with their mouth. So some dogs need a really secure setup because it's an important really dangerous thing if the dog were to mess with the site, or you have a dog that just has an issue with stitches. I know there's some dogs that they have this intense desire to want to rip the stitches out of their body. They find them, that they're really drawn to wanting to do that, where other dogs might leave the stitches alone or an injury and not want to mess with it at all. Like Halo, he just got neutered yesterday and he's not bothering the site of the surgery at all. So he's under the couch right now relaxing while I have my eyes on him. And then if he were to mess with his stitches, I could put the cone on. And I put the cone on when I'm not able to monitor him and make sure he's not messing with it. So even though he's not messing with it at all, I'm still going to use the cone just to make sure nothing bad happens after his surgery. These kind of cones that you usually get from the vet come with a string, and then you put the cone onto your dog's head and tie the string so that it's securely tight that your dog can't just push the cone off with his paws. What I like to do is put my dog's collar through the cone so that it's tight enough that if they tried to push the cone off, that it doesn't go over their head, but it's loose enough that that it's comfortable around the dog's neck. Now, my personal opinion is I don't like the way these poke into the dog's neck. If there's just a string on it, the cone basically rests on your dog's neck with these, and they can be kind of sharp. So you want to make sure that you don't scrape your dog's eye as you're putting the cone on. So what you can do, or what I like to do, is put the dog's collar through the cone like this, and then you can use some bandage to wrap around these so that they don't stick out. And then when the collar is through, all you have to do is put it onto the dog's head and then buckle the collar and then unbuckle the collar, and it's going to make the same noise as the dog's normal collar going on and off. You just want to make sure it's tight enough that they can't push it off. Now, if you had a escape artist type dog that's really obsessed with trying to get to his injury, you can have your dog in a harness with the cone attached securely to the harness. So the cone is attached to the harness, and you want to make sure that you're monitoring your dog with this type of setup because accidents can happen. So you might have that set up on your dog while you're around the house, but that can make it helpful for the dog not just pushing the cone over their head, say if you have a sight hound and their head is smaller than their neck. I really like using these soft cones with my dogs, and I use the same process of putting their collar through the little holes here to secure it to my dog's neck. I like this one that has a window and soft fabric so the dog can see through and it's not too dark, and then they can rest nicely with the cone on their head. Can you put your head in there? Good. And can you do head down? So you can see she can rest comfortably. Also, just a quick note, if your dog has long ears or they get stuck back there after you put the cone on, you can pull your dog's ears forward and give them a treat for doing that when you start using a collar so that their ears are all nice and comfortable inside of the cone. These cones are great for managing your dog around the house, But keep in mind, if you have a dog intent on getting to whatever it is they're not supposed to touch, they can easily learn to bend the cone in order to get where they want to go, or invert the cone like that. So I've seen dogs invert the cone on furniture by mistake and then be able to reach what they want, and I'm sure a dog could learn to do it on purpose to get where they want. So keep in mind, you know, it's not 100% safe to wear one of these, but my own dogs are very good at, these border collies are specifically really good at not messing with injuries. So I like to use the soft cone for bedtime so that they can get comfortable at night. And if you're a light sleeper, it's easy to hear if they're trying to get to their injury. So if you're a heavy sleeper, you might want to use the harder cone. This is a very small one that I got from my Chihuahuas that has the hard cone and then soft around the neck, because when Kiko had an eye ulcer, my little Chihuahua, I tried conditioning her to like the hard cone, and she was really not liking the weight of the cone resting on her neck. So using this soft cone really improved the quality of life and her night times of sleeping in the cone, because she wasn't at night wanting to mess with her eye ulcer. This really helped improve the quality of her life. But again, what can happen with this cone is they can push it so that it's a little bit shorter, and then they can possibly reach their face. So you want to make sure that if you put something on your dog, that you know that they can't reach whatever it is if you're going to be leaving them alone. So when I had to leave my little Chihuahua, I left her in the hard cone and then had her in this cone for when I was around the house and at nighttime when I was in the same room as her, to hear if she was trying to mess with her eye. Epic has never seen a cone like this, and I just want to do a tiny demonstration of what it looks like when you move the object towards the dog that the dog's never seen before at first. So if I move this into her space, you can see she backs away. I'm not going to do any more than that because I want to teach her that this is a wonderful thing. So instead of trying to put it on her, I'm going to make the object move away from her, and you can see that she's immediately following it after backing away from it. So movement is extremely important when conditioning things that you want to use with your dog and you want them to have a positive experience with them. So here you go. I'm just going to start moving this cone away from her, marking and reinforcing her for following it. Good job. Good. Now I can stick my hand through the cone. Yeah. And feed her like that. Good. If you have a bigger dog, you might need to stand up. Good. 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 Good job. Get it. Good girl. If your dog knows the cue to touch, you can also ask for that behavior. Touch. Good. Touch. Good. Touch. Good girl. Good. So I'm marking as he approaches the cone. Good. And then feeding him with his little mouth in the cone. Good. 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 And then I can eventually pull his head through the cone so that he gets the treat for sticking his head through. And that's when you can mark. Good. 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 Now that he has the cone on, I'm just going to keep feeding him treats for moving with the cone on his head like that. Good job. You can also sprinkle treats down on the ground if the cone is big enough and comfortable enough for the dog to eat treats off the ground. Good. Good.
Most dogs will want to paw at the cone and try to remove it when they start to move around, so you want to make sure to use a high rate of reinforcement, and if the dog starts to paw at the cone, you can either increase your rate of reinforcement or take the cone off and give your dog a break.
If your dog doesn't particularly like having his ears touched or doesn't like the process of when you pull the cone off over his head and it's a tight fit because you've made it the right size for actual use, you can feed the dog a treat like this and have the cone unhinged so that you can take the cone off. Also, if there's like an emergency that just happened and the treat falls into the cone, the dog doesn't panic trying to get out of the cone. Are you ready? So I'm putting the treat in like that, and then I'm letting go so that he's not having his ears smushed every time I practice putting the head in like that. And then we can work on the ears, having the cone rub his ears on the way back out on a different session so it's not too much too quickly. So he's going to put his head in like that, and then I'm going to hold it this time so he feels a little bit of the pressure of what it's like to have the cone taken off. Whoops, I dropped another treat into his cone. He doesn't want to have it taken off. Whoop, there you go. You can also open the cone up so that it's less intimidating for the dog to reach over the neck of the cone to get the treat. It might be a little bit trickier if you have a big, large dog and a very floppy, big cone, but this cone is, it's super easy to do this with a little dog. Now I'm going to put the buttons together. I like to do this away from the dog because it makes a loud noise. If you do it near the dog's head, you should practice making the buckle noise or the clip noise near the dog and then feeding a treat. Good. Ready? Put it in. Good. Good. So I personally like to close the buckles and then teach the dog to smush their head through when it's the right size, like that. Good boy. And now I'm going to feed him a treat as I pull the cone off. Good boy. There's no need to not feed the dog a treat when you pull the cone off and put it on. You can always give your dog a treat for having the cone put on and always give the dog a treat for having the cone pulled off. There might be circumstances where your dog can't have a treat, or you just don't have a treat, but you can use some other sort of reinforcer. So for example, when Halo goes to the bathroom, he really wants to go out the door, so I take the cone off, and the reinforcer is that he gets to then go out the door and go around and mark and pee on things outside. Put it in. So at first, when I add the cue, I can have the treat right on the cone like that and lure her head in so that it's 100% successful when I'm adding the cue. Back up. Good. And then when she gets successful with that, I can hold the treat out further away and add time before I give the next treat. Back up. Good. So I'm going to throw a treat to get her to go further away from me. Go get it. See if she's still in the game. Put it in, and then hold the treat further away like that. Back up, and I keep dropping the treats because she's very fast. Ready? Go get it. Woo. Put it in. Good. If the dog goes around the cone, you can simply lure them back into the cone with a very obvious gesture that you want their head to go into the cone. When your dog first starts using the cone, you want to make sure that your dog is drinking water. So you can show him how to drink the water on his own by putting the cone over the water bowl in order to drink. You might have to change the bowl or the location of the water so it's further away from the wall so he can get his head over to drink out of the bowl. But you can also make sure to offer the dog water frequently throughout the day to make sure he's staying hydrated, especially if he has an injury. So you can hold the water bowl, and that can help the dog learn to drink out of the water bowl with the cone. Hey pups. You can also take the cone off if your dog's not going to injure themselves, and monitor them drinking the water and then put the cone back on. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support my work, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. You can also become a supporting member of channel Kiko Pup by clicking the join button. See you later.